All right, let's talk about the big money world of modern sports. Today, we're diving into how business and media have completely changed the games we love, from your local team all the way up to the global stage.
I mean, you've definitely noticed it, right? You're trying to watch your favorite player, but you're also looking at a dozen different brand names. Well, that's not just a fashion choice. It's the most obvious sign of a massive multi-billion-dollar machine that has totally reshaped professional sports. And it all boils down to something called the Golden Triangle.
And just look at this. This shows you exactly how deep it really goes. This isn't some elite professional team. It's a youth football squad. The whole business side of sport isn't just for the superstars anymore. It's woven right into the fabric of the game, pretty much from day one. So that brings us to our first big idea, the rise of commercialism in sport. What does that word even mean? And what does it actually do to the players, the fans, and the games themselves?
Okay, so commercialism, put simply, it's when the main goal of something, in this case sports, shifts towards making as much money as possible. We're talking ticket sales, merchandise, sponsorships, and of course, those absolutely massive TV deals.
Now, to really get how this all works, you need to understand a key concept known as the Golden Triangle. Think of it as the blueprint for the powerful, interconnected relationship that basically runs all of modern professional sport. And here are the 3 points of that triangle. You've got sport, media, and sponsorship. Now, these three aren't just related. They're completely dependent on each other. Each one needs the other two to really thrive. It's a powerful cycle that feeds itself. But as we'll see, it also creates a whole lot of pressure. So let's start with the first corner, sport. Think about it. To pay for giant stadiums, to sign top players for millions, to fund youth development, and to put on these huge events, sports organizations need an incredible amount of cash. And that money has to come from somewhere, right? And that's where the media comes in. TV channels, streaming services, websites, they are all in a constant battle for your eyeballs. So what's a guaranteed way to get a massive audience all at once? Live sports. That's why media companies will pay billions, literally billions of dollars, for the rights to broadcast leagues like the NFL or the Premier League. They know we're going to tune in. And then you have the final piece of the puzzle, sponsors. All these big companies want to get their name and their products in front of that massive audience the media just gathered. So they pay teams, they pay individual athletes, and they pay the broadcasters to link their brand with the excitement and healthy image of sport. So you see how it works? Sport gets its money, the media gets its viewers, and the sponsors get their publicity. And that, in a nutshell, is the Golden Triangle. Okay, so we get how the system works, but what's the actual fallout? I mean, this system has created enormous wealth and opportunity, but it's not all good news. So let's really dig in and ask, who are the winners and who are the losers in this new world of sport? Well, for the athletes, the upside is pretty obvious, right? The money means they can dedicate their entire lives to training and can become global superstars. But the flip side is really intense. Athletes can start to be treated more like products or commodities, with their images and lives controlled by sponsors and teams. Privacy, pretty much gone. And the pressure to perform is just relentless. And it's crucial to remember, these incredible life-changing deals, they only go to a tiny, tiny fraction of elite athletes. So what about us, the fans? Well, on one hand, it's pretty great. We have more sports on TV than ever before, with incredible camera angles, slow-motion replays, and expert analysis. Stadiums are safer and more comfortable. But we also have to deal with endless ad breaks, ticket and merchandise prices that are just through the roof, and a culture that can sometimes make it easier to just stay on the couch instead of getting out there and playing. And what about the sports themselves? Well, a huge increase in money means more can be invested back into grassroots programs to find the next generation of talent. That's a huge win. But there's a cost. Traditions can get thrown out the window, and sometimes the actual rules of the game get changed just to fit in more TV ad breaks. And if the sport gets tied up with a controversial or unethical sponsor, that can really damage its reputation. And finally, for the sponsors themselves, this is a really high-stakes game. If you link your brand to a winning team or a beloved athlete, that's some of the best marketing you can buy. But it's a huge risk, because if that star athlete gets caught in a scandal, your brand gets dragged right through the mud with them. So all of this brings us to a really critical question. When there is so much money, fame, and pressure on the line, how does that affect the way people actually play the game? What does it do to ethics and behavior on the field? You know, ideally, every single game would be a perfect display of sportsmanship. Playing fair, respecting your opponent, shaking hands at the end, being a good winner and a good loser. That's the real spirit of the game. But then you have this murky gray area called gamesmanship. This is the art of, well, bending the rules. You're trying to gain an advantage by doing things that aren't technically illegal, but they're definitely not in the spirit of fair play. It's a clever tactic to some, but to others, it's crossing an ethical line. Here's a perfect example from cricket. A fielder dives for a low catch, the ball hits the ground, but they scoop it up and celebrate as if they caught it clean. There's no rule against claiming it, but you're knowingly trying to deceive the umpire. That is pure gamesmanship. And finally, you get to what's called negative deviance. This is where you just throw the rulebook out the window. This is outright cheating, diving in the penalty box, dangerous foul play, or of course, taking performance-enhancing drugs. So after looking at the money, the media, the ethics, the good and the bad, where does that leave us? Let's try and tally up the final score on what commercialism has done to sport. Look, there is absolutely no question that the Golden Triangle has turned sport into a global entertainment giant. It's given us incredible events, funded amazing stadiums, and turned gifted athletes into household names all over the world. Modern sport, on the scale we know it, just couldn't exist without it. But that leads to the one final, crucial question we have to ask ourselves. With all this money and all this change, are we actually improving the game itself? Or are we just making the business around the game bigger and bigger? That's definitely something to think about next time you sit down to watch.